My name is Mark, and this is the story of how I lost my wife, not to another man, but to the poisonous whispers of her best friend. It's the story of betrayal, humiliation, and the revenge that neither of them ever saw coming. When I first met Rachel, I thought I had found my forever. She was funny, beautiful, and had this energy that could light up any room. Being around her made me feel alive, like I had finally met the person who understood me. We dated for 3 years before I proposed, and when she said yes, I thought my life was complete. But along with Rachel came someone else, her best friend, Tessa. Tessa had been in Rachel's life long before me. They grew up together, knew each other's secrets, finished each other's sentences. At first, I thought it was sweet. Everyone needs a best friend, right? But as time went on, I realized Tessa had an influence over Rachel that was unsettling. Tessa was the wild one, always pushing boundaries, always looking for the next thrill. She bragged about short-term flings, about sneaking around, about living free. Whenever she spoke, Rachel's eyes would light up, not because she agreed, but because she idolized Tessa in ways I couldn't compete with. In the early years of our marriage, I brushed it off. I thought, Rachel loves me. Tessa's just her friend. She'll grow out of it. But little by little, I noticed changes. When I suggested quiet nights at home, Rachel would sigh and say, Tessa says I need more excitement. When I saved money instead of splurging, Rachel complained, Tessa thinks you're too cautious. It was like I was in a marriage with both of them. Still, I tried. I worked long hours to build a future for us, to pay off the mortgage, to plan for kids someday. Rachel told me she wanted the same things, or at least, she used to. Then came the first real crack. One night, Rachel came home late after drinks with Tessa. She was flushed, smiling too brightly, and when I asked how it went, she said, we talked about relationships, about how people aren't meant to be tied down, about how open marriages are actually healthier. I froze. Open marriage? Rachel, where is this coming from? She shrugged, playing it off. Don't freak out. It's just something Tessa mentioned. She says it keeps things exciting, stops people from resenting each other. I laughed nervously, hoping it was a joke. That's not us. I don't need anyone else, Rachel. I chose you. She smiled, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of doubt, of curiosity that chilled me. From that night forward, things started to change faster. Rachel became more distant. She went out with Tessa more often, stayed out later, came home smelling of expensive perfume that wasn't hers. When I asked, she brushed me off with, Don't be so controlling, Mark. Not everything's about you, but I could feel it. Something was slipping. And the more I tried to hold on, the more Tessa's shadow loomed over our marriage. I didn't know it yet, but the woman I loved was already on the edge of betrayal. And the person pushing her toward it was the best friend she trusted most. After that first night when Rachel mentioned open marriage, I tried to push the thought out of my head. Surely she was just repeating something Tessa had said after a few drinks. But as the weeks passed, I realized it wasn't a one-time comment. It was the beginning of a slow, deliberate shift. Rachel started using phrases I had never heard from her before. Marriage isn't supposed to be a prison. Exploration makes love stronger. Every time I challenged her, she'd hold up her phone and say, See? Even Tessa agrees. Tessa. Always Tessa. The more Rachel pulled away from me, the closer she clung to her best friend. Nights we used to spend together turned into nights she was out with Tessa. Plans we'd made were canceled with a quick text. Sorry, Tessa really needs me tonight. When I asked why she couldn't just say no once in a while, she looked at me like I was the selfish one. You don't get it, she said one evening. Tessa has been with me through everything. She just wants me to be happy. And me? I asked. Don't I count? Her answer was a long silence, and then a shrug. It was like being slowly erased from my own marriage. One Friday, Rachel came home late, her lipstick smudged and her perfume thick in the air. She was giggling as she dropped her purse on the counter. I asked where she'd been, and she answered casually, Tessa introduced me to some amazing people tonight. They have this philosophy, Love doesn't have to be limited to one person. Philosophy? I said, my chest tight. Rachel, we're married. We made vows. She tilted her head, almost pitying me. That's just words, Mark. People change. It felt like being punched in the gut. From then on, the changes came fast. She dressed differently. Tighter clothes, higher heels, dresses that looked like they were meant to impress strangers, not her husband. She stayed out later. She guarded her phone like it was a vault, smiling at messages I wasn't allowed to see. I tried everything to pull her back. I suggested a vacation, just the two of us. She laughed. That sounds boring. Tessa says I need to stop living like an old married woman. I cooked her favorite meal. She ate a few bites, then pushed the plate away and went to text Tessa instead. It wasn't just neglect. It was transformation. My wife was slipping away piece by piece, and her best friend was the one holding the rope. Then came the night she said the words I had been dreading. We were sitting in the living room. She was scrolling through her phone, laughing at something Tessa had sent her. I asked what was so funny. She locked her phone and looked at me. Mark, she said, her tone rehearsed. I think we should consider an open marriage. Tessa says it could save us. Save us. I nearly choked. From what? From boredom. From resentment. From becoming one of those couples that hates each other after 10 years? I stared at her. And how does sleeping with other people fix that? Her smile was cold. It's not about sleeping with people. It's about freedom, about not holding each other back. No, I said firmly. Absolutely not. She rolled her eyes and muttered, God, Tessa was right. You are so insecure. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. Rachel wasn't just listening to her best friend. She was becoming her. Over the next few weeks, she pushed harder. She brought home books about ethical non-monogamy. She sent me articles late at night with subject lines like worth reading. She even invited couples over for dinner, friends of Tessa's, all of them bragging about their open dynamics. I felt like a stranger in my own house. Then one night, Rachel came home past midnight. Her hair was messy, her cheeks flushed, and she reeked of someone else's cologne. My stomach dropped. Where were you? I asked. She shrugged, tossing her shoes aside. Out with Tessa. I stepped closer. Don't lie to me. Her eyes narrowed. This is why I didn't want to tell you. You can't handle the truth. You cling to this fantasy of us being enough for each other, but it's not reality. People aren't built that way. Rachel, I am enough, I said, my voice breaking. And I thought you were too. She didn't answer. She just walked past me and shut the bedroom door. That night, I sat in the dark living room, my chest hollow, realizing the marriage I had fought for was already gone. And the worst part? It wasn't stolen by a stranger. It was poisoned by someone Rachel called her best friend. I didn't know it yet, but I was standing on the edge of the betrayal that would shatter everything. I told myself for weeks that maybe I was overreacting, that Rachel was just confused, swept up in Tessa's wild philosophies. I clung to hope like a man clings to driftwood after a shipwreck. But hope, I learned, can blind you. The night everything shattered started like any other. Rachel said she was going out with Tessa. She wore a red dress I had never seen before, short and loud, paired with heels that clicked like gunshots across the floor. I asked, "Where are you going?" She smiled without looking at me. "Don't wait up." Those words hit me like a warning. And this time, I didn't wait. I followed. I kept my headlights off and trailed her car at a distance. She drove across town, not to Tessa's apartment, but to a downtown hotel. My stomach turned. She parked, smoothed her dress in the rearview mirror, and walked inside. I waited. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Finally, I couldn't take it. I stepped out, walked through the revolving door, and scanned the lobby. And there she was, Rachel, laughing, leaning against a man I had never seen before. Tessa was with them, smiling like a proud matchmaker. It felt like someone had driven a nail straight through my chest. I snapped a photo with my phone, hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. Then I turned and walked out before they could see me. Driving home, I felt numb. My wife wasn't just flirting with temptation. She wasn't just testing boundaries. She was cheating. And Tessa wasn't just whispering ideas into her ear. She was encouraging it, arranging it, celebrating it. When Rachel stumbled through the door at 3 in the morning, smelling of cologne and cheap wine, she barely looked at me. She kicked off her shoes, humming, and went straight to bed. I sat in the living room until sunrise, staring at the proof on my phone. My hands clenched, unclenched, clenched again. I wanted to scream, to wake her up, to throw the picture in her face. But instead I stayed quiet, because I realized something. If I confronted her now, she'd deny it. She'd twist it. Tessa would spin it into Mark's paranoia. I'd be the villain, not the betrayed. No, I couldn't just confront them. I had to be smarter. Over the next few days, I started watching closely. Rachel thought she was being clever, but cheaters always slip. And she did. Receipts from bars across town, a rideshare notification at 2 a.m., a second phone bill I hadn't noticed before. I gathered it all. Every detail, every timestamp, every inconsistency. I wasn't just a husband anymore. I was an investigator, building a case. The more I found, the angrier I became. But beneath the anger was something sharper, colder, resolve. Rachel and Tessa thought they were playing me for a fool. They thought I'd sit quietly while they rewrote the rules of our marriage without me. They didn't realize I was already planning my revenge. One night, Rachel and Tessa sat in the kitchen, whispering, giggling like teenagers. I pretended to watch TV, but my ears caught everything. "He doesn't have the guts," Tessa whispered. Rachel laughed. "I told you Mark's too soft. He'll never leave." "He needs me." Tessa's voice hardened. "Then he'll accept it. And if he doesn't, screw him. You deserve to be free." Free. That word again. Free to betray. Free to humiliate me. I clenched my jaw until it hurt. That was the night I decided. This wouldn't end with an argument. It wouldn't end with me begging. It would end with me showing them what real consequences looked like. I stopped trying to win Rachel back. I stopped fighting for scraps of affection. I smiled when she lied, nodded when she said she was with Tessa, and even wished her a fun night when she went out in dresses I knew weren't for me. Inside, though I was done, I was waiting, watching, preparing, because my revenge wasn't going to be a shout in the dark. It was going to be a spotlight, one that exposed everything they thought they were clever enough to hide. And when that spotlight hit, Rachel and Tessa wouldn't just lose me, they'd lose the smug little game they had built together. The invitation went out from Rachel's phone on a Wednesday night. Game night at ours, friends, drinks, no judgment. I watched her type it, watched the little paper airplane icon whoosh it into the world Tessa curated. Within minutes, a chorus of "we're in," "can't wait," and heart-eye emojis. Perfect. Because if they wanted an audience, I'd give them one. Not for the performance they imagined, but for the truth. In the days before the party, I finished the quiet work I'd started after the hotel. I moved my most important documents, deed, tax returns, insurance, into a safe deposit box. I opened a new bank account, redirected my direct deposit, and froze the joint card she'd been using like a prize card at an arcade. I met with a family lawyer, slid a neat stack of photos and timestamps across his table, and listened as he outlined a way forward that didn't involve yelling, begging, or empty threats. "Transparency," he said. "Evidence," he said. "Control what you can." I left his office lighter than I'd felt in months. Then I met with one more person, our neighbor, Danielle. Middle school counselor, razor-sharp observer, the only person on our block who gently asked if I was okay during the long, strange winter of Rachel's freedom. I didn't tell her everything. I didn't have to. I just said, "If things get tense Saturday, would you mind walking folks out? I don't want a scene on the sidewalk." She squeezed my arm. "You got it." Saturday came dressed like spring, soft air, patient sun. I prepped the house, but not like a host, like a stagehand. Chairs angled toward the mantel instead of the TV. A fresh HDMI cable coiled under the media console. A small Bluetooth clicker in my pocket. On the coffee table, a clean stack of cardstock coasters. On the underside of each, a number I'd written in pencil. Guests drifted in around 8. Laughter arrived first, big, buoyant, self-congratulatory. Rachel looked incandescent. the kind of glow that says I'm getting away with something. Tessa arrived late, of course, wearing the sort of smile you can hear across a room. She hugged Rachel long, then turned to me with a smirk like a dare. "Mark, brave of you to host a night for people who color outside the lines." "Someone has to provide the paper," I said, pouring seltzer into a glass I didn't intend to drink. They gathered. 2 couples from Tessa's orbit, one single guy who talked about energy like it paid rent, a woman who wore curiosity like jewelry. They sprawled across the living room, tore through snacks, and floated the same phrases that had colonized my home. Compersion. Evolving. Scarcity mindset. I listened. I nodded. I kept my eyes kind. I waited. Around 9:30, Tessa clapped her hands like a camp counselor. "Let's play a game," she announced. "Nothing heavy. Just truth without shame." She glanced at Rachel and then at me, joyous. "We're all adults." "Great idea," I said, standing. "I've got one." The room turned. Rachel cocked her head, amused. "Since when do you have games?" "Since tonight," I said, and pressed the power button on the TV. The screen woke to a black background and a simple white title I'd spent an hour aligning just so, Truth or Consequences. Below it, a menu, timeline, transactions, photos, map. The room tittered. Someone said, "Whoa, production value." Rachel laughed too. "You made a slideshow?" she said, half adoring, half condescending. "Mark, that's cute." I clicked the remote. Timeline opened first. A clean calendar grid filled the screen. Dots pulsed on dates Rachel had texted with Tessa or staying with Tessa. I clicked one at random. It expanded to show a timestamp and a rideshare receipt to an address across town that wasn't Tessa's. Another click. A hotel authorization at 9:13 p.m. A 3:06 a.m. rideshare from the same hotel to our house. I didn't narrate. I didn't accuse. I let dates do their silent work. A couple on the couch stopped smiling. I clicked to transactions. A split screen. Our joint card on the left, Rachel's new card on the right. Both scrolled, bar tabs, boutique receipts, wine deliveries. I'd blacked out account numbers and left only merchant, time, location. Where the merchants overlapped with the timeline, a thin gold line joined them like constellation lines connect stars. Someone cleared his throat. Tessa reached for her wine. Rachel giggled too loudly. "Wow, you've been busy," she said, rolling her eyes toward the room. "He's always been like this, organized to a fault." I clicked photos. The hotel lobby swelled to full screen. Rachel tilted toward a man's shoulder. The exact red dress. Tessa in the background, mid-laugh. I had cropped faces of bystanders and blurred the stranger's features. The focus was not to punish him. This wasn't about him. It was about the people who chose deceit and called it honesty. The laughter in the room died like a radio dropping signal. Rachel's cheeks went blotchy. That's an invasion," I clicked again. A second photo. Rachel and the same man at a rooftop bar, Tessa's hand on Rachel's arm like a priestess at an altar. A third, the back of Rachel disappearing into a hallway with a golden room number glinting overhead. I said nothing. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't rise. I just set each fact on the table and stepped back. "Okay," Tessa said brightly, voice a half step too high. "This is toxic." We agreed, no guilt, no surveillance. We did not agree, I said, and pressed the last tab. Map. Pins bloomed across the city like a rash, each one a night Rachel said, "with Tessa." When I clicked a pin, the sidebar showed the matching location and the identical text she'd sent me. "Don't wait up," with Tessa, late. The lie had become a template. No one spoke. Even the guy who loved energy stared at the rug. I muted the TV and let the room breathe. Then softly I said, "This is not a referendum on lifestyle. It's a record of choices. Rachel, you told me you wanted honesty without consequences. You wanted freedom without responsibility. You wanted me to swallow suspicion and call it maturity." I gestured to the screen. "This is what you did with your freedom. And this," I tapped the binder on the console, "is what I did with your honesty." Rachel's eyes were bright with fury and fear. "You're humiliating me." You humiliated me, I said, calm. Quietly, repeatedly, in my house. Tessa slapped her palm on her knee. You can't gotcha your way out of a stagnant marriage, Mark. This is pathetic. I turned to her. You and I have different definitions of stewardship. You fed my wife a vocabulary that excused her from caring about the person she promised to love. You told her courage meant selfishness. That's not liberation. It's laziness dressed up as philosophy. Tessa stood. We're leaving. In a minute, I said, and clicked the TV off. The room felt instantly heavier, as if the silence had returned to claim the space. I reached into a folder and handed Rachel an envelope. This is notice that the joint account is closed. I've removed myself from the card you've been using. Here's an inventory of the things that belong to me. I've already moved anything sentimental somewhere safe. I handed her a second envelope. And this is an offer for a no-fault separation agreement drafted by my attorney. It's generous. It splits what we actually built together and leaves out what I owned before, like the house. If you'd like to negotiate, my lawyer's information is inside. She didn't take it at first. Then she did, snatching it like it burned. I handed a small, identical envelope to Tessa. She opened it, frowning. Inside was a single card with a single sentence. You are no longer welcome in my home. Beneath it, the date, my signature, and a line. Future trespass will be documented and prosecuted. She looked up, laugh ready, but no one else was laughing. The room had learned a new language tonight, consequences. Finally, I turned to the guests. I'm sorry you were brought into something you didn't consent to witness. You were told you were coming to a party. You stumbled into a reckoning. Danielle next door will help you out if you'd like company to your cars. Danielle, who had appeared in the doorway like a stage manager, gave a tiny wave. Several people stood at once, murmuring thanks, moving gently, eyes averted like people do after prayer or fireworks. Rachel stayed seated, knuckles white around the envelope. You think you win because you embarrassed me? She said, voice low, dangerous. You think your little spreadsheet makes you a man? I shook my head. No, Rach, I win by choosing myself. By refusing to be erased in the house I pay for. By not letting your friends set the value of my life. Tessa took a step toward me. You are small, maybe, I said. But my boundaries aren't. They left. Tessa first, chin high, words muttered into her phone the second the door clicked. Rachel lingered, staring at the black TV, then at me, then at the door, as if every option in her new book of rules had suddenly run out of pages. Finally, she went too. The envelope crumpled in her fist. When the last guest had gone and Danielle had squeezed my shoulder. Proud of you, she whispered. I stood in the center of the quiet and let my breath return to its full length. The house smelled like citrus and static. The coasters were flipped face down, little penciled numbers looking up at me like freckles. I cleaned. Not because things were dirty, but because order was a prayer I could still say. Dishes away, bottles in the recycling, pillows back where they belonged. As I moved, my phone buzzed. A single text from an unknown number. I'm sorry, it read. No name, no detail. I slid the phone face down on the table and kept wiping. Revenge wasn't the slideshow. It wasn't the envelopes or the map. It was the decision I'd made before any of that. To stop begging for the smallest possible version of love. To stop letting two people who loved chaos teach me to hate myself. The next morning, I met my lawyer and signed the separation packet. By the afternoon, he'd served it. By evening, I'd changed the locks with the blessing of the statute he'd highlighted. Abandonment plus evidence equals permission. That night, I slept. Deeply. In my bed. In my house. A different kind of silence filled the rooms. One with edges I could trace and live inside. They never saw it coming because they never looked. They were too busy admiring their reflections in the gloss of their own rules, and I, patiently, quietly, was busy building a mirror they couldn't avoid.